Hello, this is Simple SolidWorks. Today we're going to do another part. We've gone through a lot of these features that we have in SolidWorks, and last lesson we talked about several things that we sort of finished the feature section of SolidWorks, and I would like to create a part. This part is not that complex, but it does provide a nice little exercise for us to work on. So if you're looking at the screen now, you notice that there is a part that I have here. This part I was able to get from the internet, so it is very useful for that type of application. So we're going to start working on this. So first of all, we're going to create a sketch. What I like to do first is, let me take a step back. I like to look at my part before I design anything and try to find out which is the most important feature that has the most dimensions. So for me, in my opinion, this face right here where this is hovering at, right, when you see that little blinking, is the most important feature of this part. So therefore, this could be, it's going to be my main part that I'm going to extrude to, and then from there I'm going to create my other smaller parts from that. So I go ahead and start just sketching things to a certain extent. I look at it and I was like, okay, that looks, if memory serves me, I'll say sketch. I'll pick the front plane because that's where I'm going to be doing my sketch at, right? I start my drawing and I'll start to just put lines. I like to put things in the center mark there and start to sort of imagining what I'm sort of making. You know, I know this is a weird little sketch first, so I start something like so that I can start putting some dimensions and start making things, tie things together little by little, right? So I know I have a grand total of 100 minus this. So instead of doing all the math, I just work my way down. I'll work from the top, come here, come around there, and then I ended up put the 100 dimension to tie it all together. So, you know, I'll start off with 44, right? I'll say, okay, that's 44. That's that. Then I look at it again. I say, okay, that's my 44. That's my 20. There's my 10. So my 20 and 10. So I'll go, okay, inward is 10. And then that does that portion. Okay, you gotta make sure you put just one block. Put 10, and then I put 20 here, right? And then I put 100. From here to here, because that was what the sketch had. It had 100, so I'll put 100. So then I'll complete. That's my overall, sort of my overall height of where things are gonna go. So now the next part I do is I look at this piece right here, which is that amount minus that amount by 2 divided by 2. So 100 minus, which will be about 1250 sort of in my head, but I'm going to let the computer tell me exactly what it is. So how you do that is you go back to your sketch, you pick that dimension, you put it out there, and you say, well, I know that there's 25 left over, so you go 25 divided by 2, it says 1250. Yeah, okay, that was great. So my math was right. So you can do some basic calculations, you know, divide, subtract, multiply, that kind of a thing, but nothing, you can't just do a whole, you know, calculus type of command in there, but it allows for that, for some calculations. Here's where it gets kind of sticky, right? You see that this is the 12, there's a 50, but it doesn't tell you what this height is right here. The way you're gonna have to find that out is by drawing a line at a 45, I'll say that's 90, I'll say 45 coming this way, putting the 12, and then finding the midpoint of that 12, which is going to be the midpoint of 125, or 125 divided by 2, so that you can sort of find that magic point where things are sort of supposed to match up. So what I do first is I know that that's 12, And I know that's at 50, right? So I'll draw a line anywhere. I go ahead and put 12 there. So then I have 12, and then I say here to here. Oops. No, not there. From here to here, I know it's 50. So now I know that my line is there, right? So then after I do that, I go ahead and I want to center this, right? I know that I need to find this center of this. I'll go ahead and create a center line right in the middle of that. Put it up there like this, and then I'll draw a dimension from here to here, from here to here, and I'll say 125 divided by 2. Right? So that gives me where that line needs to be. So I know now that that's going to be my point, that it's going to eventually connect there. It's not there yet, but it's going to connect. So what I do is I grab a line again. I'll draw it anywhere like this, anywhere close to this area here. And I go ahead and I give that a dimension. I say that I know this is going to be 45. Well, I really hit that on the mark. That's rare that happens, but 45, right? Because it's half of 90. So now I know where that needs to be. And if I go ahead and notice now, if I draw a line, if you notice that if I draw a line coming up, like so, that is where that little angle is supposed to be. So I go ahead and I trim this. It's gonna yell at you because you have some dimensions tied to it, which is fine. And you trim that. So now if you look at it, you pretty much have your shape, your profile the way you want it. So now I know that this whole thing was 125, right? On the drawing itself, it said that the total width was 125. So I come back and I'll draw a line from the bottom of the base and I'll say 125. So I'll just sort of around here close. You see, I can see it down there. I don't know if you can see it, but it does put somewhat what kind of a line length is it. So then I'll put 125 right here. And that should complete the base of that right there. So now here's the fun part. You don't have to redraw this all over again. You know that this part, you know, by just looking at it, is symmetrical. Otherwise, it would have given you a different dimension here. They would have done something funky here. But since they only put dimensions on one side, and they're giving you the whole base of it 125, and that means that that part is symmetrical. It is equal on both sides. So with that information, you go back to your sketch, and this time you're going to use mirror entities. So it's going to ask you to select the entities you want to mirror. So you just select the parts that took you the most to do, right? You're going to mirror this part right here. You're going to avoid this, and you're going to avoid the bottom. You just want that part. So then what you do now is going to say mirror about. So if you see that, you have to have that in blue, and you pick a center line. It needs a center line. That's what that little symbol right here means. And it's looking for a center line to mirror about. So now you pick this line here, and now it does the same copy on the opposite side. Now the good thing about doing it this way, instead of redrawing it on this side, is it creates this, let's get rid of this one here. You see how it's yellow? That means it's over constraint. That's what that yellow means. That means that you got this dimension plus you got that dimension, but it knows that it's symmetrical. So therefore you need to get rid of them. So I get rid of one, so I will just get rid of, you can get rid of the bottom one or the top one, whatever you want to do, but I'll just get rid of the top one since it wasn't called in the drawing. So now you have this thing that's completely symmetrical. You have the dimensions, you got everything the way it's supposed to be, right? Everything seems to be okay. Let me see this here. I think that might not be captured, so I'm gonna drop this line. Oops. I'm gonna do that. That's sort of another way of moving stuff around. Like you can just scroll with your mid button and it just opens that dimension. Okay, so let's drop that down. See, I just did it again. You can do it that way, but I'm just gonna drop it on here because I need to see if it's black. That's what I'm doing that for. But you notice that when I change that dimension, it changes it on both sides, right? It is recognizing that this is symmetrical, and whatever I do on this side is gonna impact this side. So that way, I like to use that mirror, because that way if you do 30 on this side, it does 30 on that side, and you don't have to sort of you can always go through your designs a little bit faster. So now you have your profile the way you want it. You have everything sort of black, which is, I keep telling people, this is very important. Try to put your dimensions in a way that you can see them, because this comes in handy when you're going to do your drawing. When you do your drawing, you want to do your model dimensions, and if you have your models, your dimensions in the wrong spot or somewhere funky, it's going to bring them in somewhere funky too. So it's good for you to have good practice to sort of try to keep your dimensions in a nice, neat order before you actually conclude the drawing aspect of it. So when you confirm that, you have your sketch, you go back to your window here and see what you got to do now. So now I know it's got to be extruded 125. So I'll come back here. I'm going to extrude it one way. I could extrude it two ways, but I'm going to say extrude boss. I'm going to extrude, you know what? I'm going to do it both ways. I'm going to say mid-plane extrusion. And then I'm going to hit 125. And now you have your part. Bam. So that does that part, right? Now you're missing the bottom portion, which should be a lot more easier than do to this, right? You have this already pretty much laid out. You have 185 degrees up from center to center, which is the midpoint of that, which will be dividing that by 2. You have your circle, this is 60, and you have the height of that foot, it's about 20. So now what I like to do is create this little sketch. So I'll go and I'll use the top view of that. So my top view here, I'm going to say, you know what, I need to create another extrusion at that spot. I like to look at my item, my part that I'm going to design, and I like to just start off with let's do a rectangle here. Let's just put it out there, like there. Then draw a circle here, from there to there. And then you can just trim this a little bit, just to start making it neat, right? Let's trim that again. Right, so now, yes, please. Okay, so now you have that. So like I said before, you have a 120, whatever, what was that number again? I always gotta look at the number. So you have it that is 60, then you have it as 185 from center to center. So let's do the 185 first. Let's tie this here, from here, and let's pick a midpoint. You know what? Let's do a construction line first. Let's do a center line so we can have everything nice and neat. Right. So let's go from here to here, here. And if you open it up like that, if you push it this way, it'll create the dimension for you. So you can say, what? I want it to be 185. So there you have that. And now you have your circle at that point where it needs to be tied to. Go back to the drawing. And it says 60. So then you come up here and you say 60 from here to here. All right, now you see how I didn't put it to center? That's fine, because you can always draw another center line somewhere around here. Find the midpoint of it. Right there, see how it showed up the orange there? You can go like that. You can move this out there right here, and then you just pick the center of this to that. You hold the shift button, or the control button, or the shift button down, And now you can add a constraint. You can say, let's say midpoint of that. Nope, that's not good. Let's eliminate that. Let's edit, undo that. And let's say coincidence. Nope, that's not good either. So let's see if we can move it just like that. That should tie it together there. You just gotta work a way around it. Like I keep telling you, sometimes you'll work right away and sometimes it was just not gonna do it. So now you have 30 for that center hole. So I find that kind of odd, but I will say that it's probably just giving you a dimension there for that other center hole. But it shouldn't be, because that 185 should have tied everything together. So I think that 30 is to throw you off a little bit. So let's create another sketch of a hole. Let's say a circle there. Let's move this across here. And let's create another drawing here. Let's see what it says. It says 21. So let's put a dimension there. $21. And from here to here, the drawing said 30, which kind of find that odd, but it's already in 30. You see how it's already in 30? That's why I gave you that. This dimension is not really, it's not a valid dimension, right? Because it just doesn't make any sense. It's already been tied at 185. But you still got this thing kind of blue, right? It's kind of like, it doesn't want to quite tie itself together. Like it's missing something. It's missing something from this side, right? That's why it's moving. So if you look at the sketch, it might not have all the dimensions. So you have 20 here, you have that one's already been tied, that's 30, and that's 21. So you have the dimensions from the sketch, but SolidWorks needs more. It needs more information. So that information could be, well, I need to know how much is, from the line itself to this line. Are we gonna constrain it there, right? Are you gonna coincident that there? And that sort of snaps it, but it's still moving around. See, it's still doing this. So that means it's missing. For construction purposes, it might not work until you give it a dimension. Now I will say from here. No, not from there, I'm sorry. Maybe this dimension. Yeah, it seemed like it was missing that dimension. Which is kind of odd, because this one here, 16, that should have done it, but maybe it was because it wasn't tied together. Maybe this sketch here and that line there needs to be constrained at a tangent, and there it is. That was an issue. That tells me right away that there was an issue. That line, this sketch wasn't tangent to that. So you pretty much have your sketch that you're gonna extrude. So if you turn it this way and you go back into the drawing itself, it's going to tell you that it's 20 that it needs to be extruded. So at that point, you go ahead and you just hit this feature, extrude, and you say 20. It's going to find that sketch for you. So you said 20. It's the only open sketch. That's why SolidWorks knows that. It's the only one that hasn't been consumed. Or if you think about it that way, it hasn't been consumed, so it needs to have something to work around. So I only made one because it's a mirror of the other one. And if you watched the previous video, you should be able to do this mirror pretty easy by going to Reference Geometry, Plane, and it's in the middle. So you pick this guy right here, and you pick that guy right there, and it's going to create that plane for you. And when you have that plane, what are you supposed to do? You go to Mirror. You hit Mirror. It knows the plane that is open. Now it's asking you what feature you want to mirror. So you say that one. It's going to say, yep, is that what you want to do? Yes, sirree. That's exactly what I want to do. So now you have your part. See, this is, SolidWorks is kind of, it has a lot of fun things to do. And you just got to work around it. Now this sketch here, you can move this to the side a little bit, because I want to show you something today as well. I'm going to move this sketch to the side. I want to hit the model view. and save it. So it's yelling at me. It's not saved. This part's not saved. So I'm just gonna quickly save it somewhere into my directory so I can find it later on. Okay. So I'm gonna hit this. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go to my folder that I'm putting this stuff in. And I'm just gonna put it somewhere here. Oops, let's go back up. Somewhere there. I'm just gonna call this lesson 2. Oops, lesson 2, back to that site. Oops. Just hit that button by accident. And go back to tutorials and slap it in there. Okay, so I have my lesson 2, it's been saved. It's always good to save your drawings anyways, right? Then you come here, go back to drawing sheet, and you can say model view. It already has lesson 2 right there, so you can click on that. It's gonna tell you what you wanna do. I'll say, well, I wanna put it right here. Okay, let me close this up a little bit. It's kind of so you guys get to see what's going on here. And then I can say, you know what, I want to take this and I want to do my projected view of this and just project it up. And I'm going to make one to the right here. Then I'm going to make one that's sort of isometric as well. Okay. I'm going to put one here. I'm going to click on this view. And I'm going to say click on that, so that now you have it in a sort of an isometric view. But you can also change that to trimetric or dimetric. That looks better somewhat, right? So you have your part right there already done. So what I wanted to show you here is on the annotation tab. You can click on this view here, and I want you to notice that there's a button that says model items. If you click on that, it's going to tell you what do you want to do. You want to say, okay, I want the entire model or the selected feature or the entire model. I want you to import these models dimensions. So if you notice, it automatically brings all the models dimensions here. If you do the same thing on this side here, and you say the models and you say yes, it'll do that. But you don't have to do that. You can say, okay, this dimension here should be it's more suitable to be up here. Or yeah, that dimension there should be up here. So you can just hold the control button. If you hold it and you move it, okay, and you move it to the side, it places it on the side. And I meant to say the shift button, sorry. If you put it there, then it just puts it right on that dimension. So then, let's say for instance, maybe this dimension, no, not really. Let's find where that's at, right? And but maybe this dimension, you want to move this dimension. Let's say that's here. Just should be making reference to this diameter. You can move it by holding the shift button and you drop it in there. And it'll just put it somewhere there where it makes more sense, in a sense of dimensioning where it should belong, right? This dimension here might be too much. And then you just drag it, hold the shift, put it over here in this view, and it'll pop it right there for you. So the good thing about that is the good thing about doing this the way I just did it, it's because you want to be able to in the future, if you want to modify the parts, you can go ahead and do that. You know, you don't have to go to the model. You go straight into this well, it's kind of like, let me change this settings here because it was kind of throwing me off. It's all in decimals and this is supposed to be in metric, so it's kind of like, what's going on here? I know I did this, but the drawing has its own settings as well, and you'll learn that. Then SolidWorks, you can settings galore, right? So now you have your dimensions sort of where you want it, and that kind of a fun thing. And I think that it's very useful to bring in the model dimensions, because you don't want to have it anywhere else, right? If you're in the habit of bringing in dimensions that are not from the model into it, then you might run into a problem where you can't modify it later on. Like, I like to see this and say, okay, if I double click on this, if I double click on it, it's going to activate the actual dimension that I can change. If I say 110, and you see how this is sort of like in hashed, if I hit refresh, then everything will be modified all at once. 110, 110 all over. And if I go to the model itself, right, that model itself will be 110. If I click on here, I can see some of the dimensions. As long as I look at if I go, you know, to, where's that at? Old Tuesday. Well, if I were to measure from here to here, I can tell that that's the right length. I'm trying to find what the heck is that button. There's a lot of buttons in SolidWorks. Well, might not. Oh, here it is. Evaluate. If I hit measure, and I measure from here to here, it says 110. You see? Because it already takes that information from the file itself and is bringing it in. If I do go back to sheets and I say, well, you know, it's not supposed to be 110, it's supposed to be 100. It's going to hashtag, everybody's going to hash brown, this thing like that. You refresh it, and it's going to go shrink back down. You go back to your model itself, and it's going to impact the model. And if you go back to measure, and you measure this face again here, 100. See, that's the distance. So that's the good thing about bringing in your model dimensions. You can actually play around with that. So I hope this was useful to you guys. And next week or a couple more days, I'm going to be touching on some of the other tabs that I spoke about last time. We sort of I want to start getting into this a little bit on the sketch side, just to work on this, show you what this does, and then sort of work on the surfaces and start working on this tab. So there's a whole bunch of tabs. If you can see that, there's a whole bunch of tabs. So if you have any comments, please put them on the left. Put your comments there. So if you have any questions, if you want to know if I did something that you felt like you don't understand it, just send me place it on the comments. I'll be more than happy to answer all your questions. Please subscribe, and I hope that I get to see you guys next time I make one of these videos. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope that this was useful for you guys.